other nonprofits, Open Air. Thank you so much, Stony. She's not an old man, and she's here. And Stony, we're so pleased that we can do this. We give big thanks to the Philipsburg Arts Fund, Stephen, for what he's doing with his word and keeping the arts alive here in Philipsburg. Just briefly, we're very pleased that we can preserve this theater and do the things that we're doing so that we can bring families and bring the kids in here and really enhance the artistic potential of our town. We have so many creative children in town here, and we're determined that football is not the only offering. I'm sorry. But lastly, I'd like to just please everybody, big hand to Mike and Barbara McDowell for making this happen. They're the owners of the theater. More to come. Lots coming. So. Yeah. Thank you, Billy.
Thanks, Sally. I just want to say this is the kind of person Sally is. At the end of Act 1, she was waiting for me right there with a little glass of rosé. But I would like to say it is now empty. I'm going to actually say some thank yous right now before I forget them. I know Sally just thanked a few people, but I'm so thrilled to be in Philipsburg. It's actually a dream of mine that I could ever perform in this theater. And so I have visited several times through my life. And I even at one time signed the dressing room downstairs with other actors that have been here through the ages, but I've never gotten to perform here. So it's just actually just been a dream come true. So I want to thank Sally and Mike for just opening up this theater. She gave me the code to the theater and said, just come in anytime you want. Of course, I couldn't remember the code and get it to work most of the time, but that is not her responsibility. I want to also say, I just quickly, on my second night here in Philipsburg, I was up in my little house, and I'd written all day long. I don't even think I stood up for about 6 hours. And at the end of the night, I thought, oh God, I gotta get out of here. I'll take a walk. And I went walking around on the north side, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll head up to the cemetery to visit my dead relatives. And I'm walking up toward the cemetery, and this gigantic dog came running out in the street, just barking at me, coming right toward me. And I kind of stopped, and from inside the house nearby, I heard this voice say, "Just say hello." And I paused for a minute, then I said, "Hello," and the dog just started wagging its tail and peeking at me. And the voice said, "His name is Hello." And out of the door on Pearl Street there came this man that I learned his name is Ray. And we talked for about, I don't know, 40 minutes. We'd never met, but we talked like we'd known each other, like we'd been neighbors. And he told me some great details about the neighborhood, and told me about the cemetery, that it's a mile all the way around. And so I said, I meant to go walk through the cemetery, and he had Hello walk me up to the gate. But dogs aren't allowed in there, and Hello turned around and went back. And so I went to the cemetery, and I visited my relatives. And then I came back out, and Hello was waiting for me. So in front of the house, I said goodbye to Hello. And from inside the house, there was a voice that said, "Do you like tequila?" Cut to it's an hour later, and I'm sitting in Ray's house, and we both told each other secrets and talked and talked and talked. And to me, that is exactly what Philipsburg is. Just incredibly welcoming people. And I want to send this one out to Ray tonight because he's a really special guy. I also want to say a couple thank yous. First of all, to Open Air, who is the reason I am here. Thank you to Stony and Kelly and everybody that's involved with Open Air. And to the Philipsburg Arts, is it council? Are you an arts council? Fund. The Philipsburg Arts Fund, which is also the reason I'm here. I am very, very grateful to Ben Larson, and Sam, and David. It's not like they just opened their home to me, they actually built a home for me. I'm the first one to stay in this little top of this little red house, and it has been the most perfect place to sit and consider what I want to write. And I'm very, very grateful to them for just being so welcoming. I also want to thank Fall, who's right over there. He's a little bit shy, so I don't know if he'll come out, but he has done all the sound and lights today. After mowing his hay and his neighbors, he came here to do the lights and the sound for this show. Thank you to Sally for every single thing. And also, it's such a trip to have you all here. Thank you for making your way here. My family is always here for me, and I'm very grateful. It's also amazing to me because my best friends throughout my life, some of my first friends I ever met are in this audience tonight, and it's very moving to me that you all showed up, so thank you very, very much for being here. This is a little self-serving, and I hope you'll just bear with me, but when COVID hit, I think you all remember COVID, my career ended. My acting career ended. I was performing in Izmir, like I told you about earlier, in Turkey, and in Izmir there is no free press. So when I was in Turkey, there was no COVID. It was just beginning. It was in February of 2019, and my husband Michael would call me and say, I think you need to get home. I think things are going south here. And I would talk to my producers in Turkey, and they'd say, no, there's no COVID, there's no problem. And eventually, I changed my ticket for a day to leave a day earlier, and the day after I left Turkey, they closed the borders. So I got out, and then my career stopped as a performer. And I know that's true for lots of us, but what it led to for me is I thought, well, I'm not going to perform for a while, clearly. So what am I going to do? And I've been thinking about writing a memoir for a very long time, and so I just kind of embarked on that. And that's what I really am doing here in Philipsburg, is trying to figure out what that's going to be. So I'm going to read you a chapter, if that's okay. And it is absolutely inspired by being sitting in a little red house up on the hill. So this is about 10 minutes, just so you can gauge. So, all right. And I've never read this out loud. This is the first draft. I have no idea how it even ends. So, here we go. This chapter is called Duck. Looking out across my rusted tin roof, down to the storefronts along Broadway, I follow the power lines up Montgomery Street and over the soft green hills to the south of Philipsburg. The road disappears from my sight. But that doesn't matter to me now, because my eyes can only trace the snowy Pintler range that edges along this morning sky. Somewhere between here and there, if you keep on for a few more miles, that is, or if your car doesn't break an axle on the rocky, rutted road, you will come upon Granite, Montana, or what's left of it. As you hike around the pine trees and swat the horseflies, you will stumble on rusted tin cans, bent barrel hoops, tossed around old stone foundations, remnants of colorful days gone by. The stories of Granite read like mythology. City in the sky, Montana's silver queen, the city without a night, a town of 3,000, maybe 5,000 people, 17 saloons, 4 churches, a roller rink, the best damn dance floor in the West, can-can girls, baseball teams, and all of this 75 feet, 1.5 miles up, straight up in the sky. I am imagining Sarah Ann and Louis Villar Graham, my great-grandparents, riding a horse-drawn stage along this same road to make a life for themselves and their 5 children on what is believed to be the richest hill on earth. It is 1891. They have taken the train from Missouri to Philipsburg. It is likely that Sarah is pregnant again, because in January, she gives birth to her 6th child, my grandmother, Allie Duck Graham. The theater you're sitting in opens that same year, 1892. Like the mighty town of Granite, my my grandmother is the stuff of legend. Like her, I'm the 6th child in my family. I was just 5 years old when she died, so I have only a few memories of her. She made me eat squash. She kicked me in the butt for saying ain't. She was all but blind, and she wore thick glasses on a chain around her neck. She had a soft lap to sit on, but I was a little scared to sit on it. A tough old bird. That's how my mom described her. I met my Grandma Duck in the last years of her life, but from my little red house on the hill in Philipsburg, I want to meet her in her first years, where she began. I want to see this place through her eyes. Imagine her taking her first steps in front of a log cabin built into a hill, watch her jumping over mud puddles, trudging through the snow from Tower to Philipsburg to get to school and back. My grandma lives on in stories and anecdotes, of course, that have been passed along to our family. The peonies and columbines that grow around my sister's house, they come from clippings from flowers in my mother's yard, and my mom snipped them from her mother's yard. I'm lucky because my grandma had begun to write down her family history. I have the notebook that contains the first 3 pages in her perfect penmanship. But 3 pages is as far as she got. I'm also lucky because my mom was diligent in documenting as much family history as she could find. She typed up letters of inquiry to churches and courthouses. She prowled around cemeteries. And she did all of this research the hard way before there was a thing called the internet. I have come to Philipsburg many times in my life. As a kid, we made pilgrimages from Missoula every Memorial Day to put petunias on the graves of the Graham family, most of whom are buried in the cemetery, because most everyone who died in granite is buried in Philipsburg. There was no shovel strong enough to dig a grave in that rock. I've also performed here several times with Shakespeare in the Parks, and I remember our best audiences were in this town. I don't remember much else because the drunkest I have ever been in my life is in Philipsburg, Montana. I'm lucky because I'm here for a month this summer with no other purpose than to wander and wander and do some digging through my roots. I don't know what I'm looking for exactly. I feel a bit like a prospector. And since my ancestors were miners, that seems appropriate. I'm not a miner. I'm a mime. And I'm a storyteller. Most stories are a blend of fact and fiction, myth and conjecture, and somewhere in that concoction, there are trace amounts of the truth. I would like to tell you a story about my grandmother. With the help of the neighbor lady named Alzona, my grandmother is born during a huge snowstorm in January 1892. The next morning at work, her father, Louis Villar, tells the other miners that a little barefoot girl came into his house during the storm. He and Sarah name her Allie, after the neighbor lady who delivered her. But 4-year-old brother Albert thinks she sounds like a duck when she cries. So they nickname her Duck. And Duck stuck. Well, there's daytime, there's nighttime, and then there is granite time. Shifts run around the clock at the bimetallic mine. So maybe Duck's crying is a signal of the coming and going of her father and her brother Will heading to the mines, tin lunch buckets in their hands, all hours of the day and night. There is good money to be made, $4 a day. But the work is grueling. And worse, by 1893, the value of silver is heading swiftly in the wrong direction. Louis Villar acquires a taste for whiskey, and he spends too much time and money down at the Kentucky Saloon. If he has a good payday, he leaves most of his earnings on the bar. Within a few short years, there are 10 Graham children in their 2-room cabin in granite. So Sarah gets a cow and sells butter and milk to make ends meet. Not much will grow in granite rock, so the kids eat lots of rhubarb. Duck complains, rhubarb, rhubarb, morning, noon, and night, and even raw in between. I have lost my taste for the stuff. From the west end of town, she watches the silhouette of a Chinaman, a yoke across his shoulders, carrying baskets of vegetables to sell. Sometimes, not often, Sarah can afford to buy some from him. The kids get up on the roof real easy since the house is built into a hill. So Duck and Albert, Archie and Jess climb up into the sunshine to take in the awesome view as they suck the last of the juice from the rhubarb peels. Duck is born with congenital cataracts. At best, she sees only 20%, but she puts her nearsightedness to good use and becomes an avid reader from an early age. For all of her life, Duck will read everything she can get her hands on. It's 1900, a new century's born. The Granite Mountain Star brings news of the World's Fair in Paris and the opening of the controversial Women's Pavilion, where women are allowed to go unattended. What is this world coming to? Allie Duck Graham takes note. There is a world beyond these fir trees, this valley, over the Pintlers, across the sea. Resting her elbows on the tin-covered roof, she dreams of all the places she wants to travel. And travel comes soon. Duck is 9 when the family leaves Granite, their belongings strapped onto a wagon, bouncing and banging down the rutted road. Myrtle Jane is just a baby now, and brother Leslie is sickly, so they ride in the wagon with their mother Sarah, and the other kids walk alongside, loaded up with bundles of bags. They rent a house in Stumptown. In Stumptown, now known as Tower, where father and sons work the area mines, from Rumsey to Red Lion, from Tower to Algonquin. Sarah plants a garden and she grows hardy vegetables, carrying water up from the creek. Peas, carrots, onions, and yes, lots of rhubarb. Duck, Albert, and Lueda walk the 1.5 miles back and forth to school in Philipsburg. Little Leslie is too sick to make the trek, so Duck gives him lessons in the evening when she gets home, a foreshadowing of the teacher she will become. On her first day of 5th grade, she introduces herself to the class as Allie Duck Graham. Her teacher grouses at the nickname and determines that her name is actually Alice. Ever the good student, Duck does not contradict her. It's Christmas, 1903. Alice, Duck, receives an autograph book from her sister, Lueda. She gets her friends to sign it throughout the school year. Here's some quotes. Just as sure as your wedding day comes, a broom to you I'll send. In sunshine, use the bushy part. In storm, the other end. Your friend and schoolmate, Christina Lake. Herman Crowley writes, I love you little, I love you big, I love you like a little pig. Here's one of my favorites. Love no boy, not even your brother. If girls should love, love one another. In the golden chain of friendship, regard me as a link. Your friend, E.S.H. Calhoun. Her brother Leslie scrawls with a pencil. Sister Alice, I thought and thought and I thought in vain, and last I thought I would sign my name. Her sister Myrtle signs the book twice, the second time in ink. Like most teenagers, I speculate that Alice dallies on her way home from school. She peeks in the shop windows along Broadway, giggles with her friends at circus parades, and saves up her pennies to attend magical acts and musicals at the Opera House. She might have sat in a seat near you and scowled at the boys behind her for pulling on her braids. She does not approve of roughhousing or shenanigans. 1910. It's graduation day. She reads her own name printed in the newspaper, the Philipsburg Mail. Alice Ann Graham, class valedictorian. She's always worn her sister's hand-me-downs, but today she graduates high school in a new white dress. She has sewn it herself out of remnants of dotted Swiss. In other news, Charlie Chaplin is performing 30 miles from here in Butte at the Majestic Theater. His company of British music hall performers love Montana so much they circle back through in 1911, and during their visit to Butte, Charlie will see an invention that will change his life forever. Moving pictures. He will leave the tour when he hits San Francisco, never to be heard from again. Thank you. Silent picture. But Duck Graham's life is changing too. She receives a scholarship to attend the normal college in Dillon. Though it hurts her heart to leave her family, especially her mother, she does not cry a tear as she waves goodbye. This will be her first step out into the world. She joins a class of 8 young women in Dillon. In her yearbook, her freshman class is asked to define themselves in the past, present, and future. Alice Graham, past tense, growled. Present, growling. Future, looking for something to growl about. She's a serious student, and she will receive a perfect score on her final exams. She works for her board and room, but finds time to serve as the vice president of the student council, and even appears in a college play dressed as a man. Her father, Louis Villar, dies of minor consumption the year that she finishes college, and her baby brother, Leslie, the last to be born, will be the first of the siblings to die. It's 1912. Though it may not have been her dream, Duck needs to send money home to her mother, so she begins what will be an 11-year teaching career, taking her to one-room schools across western Montana. Her name is now Miss Graham. She arrives at school early in the mornings to light the fire. She stays late to clean up after the kids. She lives in a cabin. She lives in a teacherage. She lives in a tent. Her mother, Sarah, has now moved into Philipsburg, raising grandchildren left behind after her 2 oldest daughters, Lottie and Mag, died within 3 months of each other. Miss Graham sends money home and takes her nieces to live with her wherever she is teaching, whenever she can. Her favorite niece is Lueda's daughter, Idri. She will name my mother, Idri. Sarah Graham is now determined to get her boys as far away from mining as she can. Miners are emerging from the dank tunnels, soaking wet in cold night air, and they can easily catch pneumonia. Black lung will take their breath away. Diphtheria and typhoid are running rampant. She's lost her husband and her 2 oldest sons, and her oldest son, to this life. And with 2 of her daughters dead, Sarah packs her wagon once again. Duck writes, "In spite of all the loss and struggle my mother endured, I never saw her shed a single tear." Duck will advise her students and her children, don't tell people your troubles. 50% of them don't give a damn, and the other half are glad you finally got what's coming to you. Sarah and her sons pool their money and they buy a little farm south of Missoula, but they can't make a go of it. Her boys don't know anything but mining, so one by one they find their way back to Philipsburg. It's 1918. The Spanish flu is spreading town to town. Butte is hit the hardest. Anaconda and Philipsburg have fewer cases, but people are required to wear masks and stay away from crowded bars. What is this world coming to? Duck moves her mother to a house in Missoula, and she helps pay the mortgage. She also pays the tuition for her youngest sister, Myrtle, to attend college. Back in Philipsburg, brother Jess discovers that bootlegging is more lucrative than mining, and he winds up in jail for a time. He then goes into business with Lueda's husband, Fritz. They stake a claim nearby together. Fritz takes all their profit and runs off to Butte with another woman. Lueda blames her brother for being deserted, and she and Jess will never, ever speak again. She lives in a miner's shack and cleans rich folks' homes. Jess tends bar at the Whitefront. Broadway and stubbornness will separate them for the rest of their lives. It's 1920. Duck and Myrtle take teaching jobs at a new school that's being built up the 9 Mile west of Missoula. The Prepstill Ranch next door has donated the land for the schoolhouse. The Graham sisters are introduced to the Prepstill brothers. Cue the violins. 1 year later, Myrtle and Bob Prepstill are married. Even though Frank Prepstill does his best to charm her, Duck continues teaching for another year. She is leery of marriage, having witnessed all the bad marriages of her sisters. She is 32 and independent, and there's a world out there to see. Some days she will tell her own daughters, do not depend on a man. Find a way to make a living and support yourself. Still, love has a mind of its own. She likes Frank's work ethic, He's a lumberjack with a penchant for gold mining, and he's not hard to look at. I learned today he will give her a wedding ring made out of the gold that he found himself. Duck and Frank are married in 1922, and their first child was born in 1923, Edie Verne. Thank God she was, otherwise like half of this audience wouldn't be here. Duck and Frank will raise 4 children together. They will travel cross country to the Virginias, Washington, D.C., and down the coast of California, even to New York City, where Frank will proclaim, "What this town needs is a good fire." Though her vision worsens, Duck loves to see the sights and read the history of all the places that they visit. She sees more than most, and she can spot a good huckleberry patch better than any bear. Duck becomes pregnant with her 4th child when she is 45 years old. She delivers the news to her husband one morning. "Frank, I think I'm pregnant." Frank says, "I don't believe it." Duck growls back, "Well, either that or I have swallowed a bullfrog." Their second son is born in 1938, and she names him Graham to pass on her family name because none of her brothers have ever married. It is 1942 now, and what is the world coming to? The attack on Pearl Harbor will shake up the Graham household. Edie Verne, my mother, decides to travel to Washington, D.C. to work for the war effort, and Duck encourages her to take the opportunity to see life outside of Montana. And then her oldest boy, Davy, enlists in the Army Air Corps. My Aunt Patsy told me that waving goodbye to Davy is the only time she ever saw her mother cry. Duck sells war bonds door to door, and Frank serves as the air raid warden. Duck jokes, "Well, I didn't sell a lot of bonds, but Missoula was never bombed." Their family starts expanding after the war, and soon they're just chasing grandkids. Duck faithfully takes the bus downtown twice a month for her women's club meetings. Frank does not appreciate her leaving him with all the kids to watch and demands to know what the hell goes on at these damn meetings. Duck fires back, "Frank, it's none of your damn business." Aunt Patsy contends that her mom was the original women's liber. Her only religion, do the right thing. In the 1950s, the ex-school marm and the lumberjack go into the grocery business, running a mom-and-pop store up the Rattlesnake called the Mount Jumbo Grocery. Duck is blind, Frank is deaf, so buying groceries there could be a long, drawn-out process. I'll make my entrance in 1959 and take my place along their 13 grandchildren, and this is where my memories begin. I remember their living quarters behind Grandma and Granddad's store, the bell on the door that sent them scurrying out to wait on customers. I remember pop bottles suspended into the ice, a magazine rack, and what seemed like an entire wall of penny candy. We would wait for what seemed like we would wait forever for Grandma Duck to say those magic words. "Well, don't you think it's time to go in there and get some penny candy?" Her living room had hardwood floors, and I skated along in my socked feet past Grandma's worldly collections. Delicate sand dollars that made a rattling sound when she shook them by my ear, a conch shell from the California coast, an ominous munition casing from World War I, and a painting that now hangs in my home in New York, a Maxfield Parrish print of a young woman draped in dreamy blues and greens, looking longingly off into the distance. The last memory that I have of my grandmother is the most poignant. It's November 1965. My family and I are gathered around Grandma and Granddad's black and white Motorola TV set. We're watching the Cassius Clay fights. Grandma loved the fights. Well, I actually wasn't watching the fights. I was skating on the floor, pretending to be Olympic ice skating champion Peggy Fleming. Grandma wasn't watching the fights either, so I jeteed off to find her. As I double-axled into the kitchen, I see Grandma's false teeth spinning across the linoleum, coming to rest at my socked feet. My sister Patty sees more than I can understand. It's Grandma at the sink, clutching her heart, Grandma to the chair, Grandma to the table, Grandma down. Grandma Duck will die from a heart attack that evening. She's 73. I performed my very first pantomime 1 week later at my Grandma Duck's funeral. It's a procession to the Sunset Memorial Gardens, a silent convoy of long black cars. I'm riding in the back seat of our 1959 black Chevy station wagon, and my mother is riding in the car directly behind us. I see her face. It's fixed, straight ahead, determined to hold back those tears. I climb into the way back of our car, and within the frame of the rear window, for my mom, I hold my face into my hands, and I pretend to cry. It's 2022. The life that began a few miles up Granite Road, the life that led to my life, is what led me back here. The legacy of Duck Graham is in the desire to know more, to travel and question and wonder. She is in the peonies and the penny candy and the taste of rhubarb and in striving just to do the right thing. I've traveled around the globe, and I think I got my wanderlust from Duck. So here I am, I'm wandering around Philipsburg. I'm imagining if my grandma could see this town today. Even with her poor eyesight, would she believe her eyes? I mean, a sushi bar? A wine shop with artisanal cheeses? Gourmet foods from around the world? It's as far-fetched as a roller rink and 17 saloons, dancing girls and baseball teams up in the sky, high atop a mountain of silver. That's the end. Thank you all for being here. I want to just tee this off to Estonia. Are you here? I don't know if there's anything else we have to do.
No.
No?
Thank you, everyone.
You guys, thank you so much for coming. You've made